Yo guys, what's going on? Robert Warshak here, and we're going to be going over the monthly meta, which is where I cover the best decks for you to play with and rank up this month. So we'll cover all of the classes that are showing promise, all of the decks that are doing well. We'll cover the deck, explain why it's doing well and why it's positioned, maybe some cards in it that make it work well. First off is going to be the Face Hunter. You have the option between the Face Hunter and the Quest Hunter. The Quest Hunter does have a little bit lesser of a win rate. It's also a little bit slower. Both decks basically are doing the same thing, which is kill your opponent kind of as fast as possible. That's always what Hunter's done, and it does it very, very well, especially the Face Hunter. And the reason the Face Hunter is doing better is because Shadow Priest got nerfed. They no longer have Mind Render Lucia anymore, which was a big portion of that deck's win rate. So you had basically Shadow Priest, which was a face deck, and you had Face Hunter, which was a face deck. Shadow Priest did a little bit better at killing the opponent, but now with that card out of the way, Face Hunter's back being the best face deck, and it does also very well against Mage. It also does very well against Warlock. It does pretty well against most of some of the most popular decks you're seeing on ladder right now, and that's where Face Hunter is coming in and doing a great job at just killing them by turn 4 or 5. We always see the Cult Neophytes and most of these aggro decks, even in some control decks now, just because a lot of the decks currently are revolving around playing a large quantity of spells, or they discount spells, whether it is through Incanter's Flow, Mithril Rod, and things like that. So when you play Cult Neophyte, it really shuts down some of their more powerful turns. It also delays some of their board and AoE. So if your opponent's like a warrior, they have Rancor, you play Cult Neophyte on 3, they go into 4, they can't play Rancor because it now costs 5 mana, and then you can kill them up the following turn. Not a bad deck to build if you're interested in Hunter and you want to kill people very, very quickly. Yo guys, I appreciate you watching my videos. I'm happy you like the content, but if you're not subbed, please sub, because over 50% of the people who are watching the content are not subbed, and it really affects the channel in a bad way. If you want me to keep doing what I love and you like the videos, just make sure you support the channel. And if you don't, I guess that's okay too. Libram Paladin. I absolutely despise this deck. For those of you who know me, I absolutely hate this deck with everything in me. It's a shame that people are playing the Smooth Brain deck again, and the reason that it's being played again is because Warlock is no longer a thing, or less of a thing, and there is a little bit room for a slower sort of beatdown infinite value deck. And there are a few decks that we're going to cover that are making reoccurrences that were very popular in the previous meta. As we know, Libram Paladin had its time to shine. It was at once the best, absolute best deck, most played deck in the game, and unfortunately, it is seeing a rise again. The Smooth Brains gentlemen are coming back. They're jamming Libram Paladin, and they are doing stuff with green cards. So for those of you unfamiliar with Libram Paladin, if you're returning to Hearthstone, this is a damn shame, and I'm sorry. You have cards that reduce the cost of Librams. From there, you have a 2-mana Libram here that for every, it just gives a minion +1/+1, and if it dies, it returns to your hand. So they get this to 0 mana, and then they keep playing it, and then they play stuff like Lady Leandraine, which returns all the copies of a spell that you cast on friendly characters, whether it be Libram of Hope, Libram of Wisdom, and it's just most awful. It is terrible. This is a very, 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 very easy deck to play. It does apparently very well in this meta right now, which again is very sad. And yeah, out of all the decks that I have to talk about this because it's popular and people are playing it and it's doing well. But if there's anything that you get from this video, don't play this deck. Play any of the other decks I talk about. I just have to do this as a courtesy to you to let you know what you're gonna see out there in the streets, but don't be one of these people in the streets, because if I see you out there, I'm gonna beat you the fuck down. Every Libram Paladin player gets the Smooth Brain emote, don't do it, chat. You're better than this. You're better. I know you're better than this. So moving to another deck that was very popular in the previous meta, and it's going to be the Deathrattle Demon Hunter. So again, with the Warlock out of the way, you have the ability to play some of these more mid-range decks like this Deathrattle Demon Hunter, which revolves around basically playing like the early game of Razor Boars, which pull out your other Deathrattle minions, which every Deathrattle minion, most of them pull some other minion, which then needs to die, which then pulls another minion. There's just a lot of sticky, a lot of chip damage minions in here. So you have your Razor Boar, which pulls an Ectoplasm, and when you kill the Ectoplasm, it pulls out like another fucking little Uzi adventurer thing. You've got the Razorfen Beastmaster, which pulls out stuff as well. You have the Peddler. When it dies, it summons another Peddler. It's just so annoying. And it's a really good, it does a really good job at being annoying. It also has the Fellsteel Executioners. Some of these decks ran this, some didn't. I think the Felseal Executioner is a fantastic card if you can't get your minions to stick on the board. This weapon is 5 damage a turn if you hero power. Also, you could run N'Zoth in this deck. I think that's too slow. I think between having the Black Speaker and the 2 Inquisitors as well as the 2 Felsteel Executioners, you're in for a pretty fast mid-range beatdown deck. This deck's going to pump out a shit ton of damage. It's going to do it quickly. Moving to the Elemental Aggro Shaman. Again, we're seeing a lot of these beatdown, very fast, minion-centric decks now. Warlock basically rotated out. Not rotated, but you know what I mean. It got nerfed. The played rate of it went to like less than 5% instead of like 40%. And it's crazy to think how dominant the Warlock was. It warped a meta that you didn't see any of these decks prior to Warlock. Like, there was no Libram Paladins, there was no Deathrattle DH, there was no Shamans unless it was Quest Shaman. So a lot of these older style, mid-range, faster aggro decks are coming into play, and this is going to be the aggro elemental one. No, it doesn't run Doomhammer, and that's probably because of how many people are playing Vipers right now. So you play like the Auction House Gavel and the Whack-A-Null. If they get oozed or vipered or what have you, it's not really that big of a deal. This deck mainly does its damage through just very powerful elemental minions. Basically every minion in the deck draws a card or does some form of damage or gives value. So his deck just curves out very, very nice, competes with the board very well, and then goes face once it loses the board around turn like 5 or 6, and that's where you're playing like Fire Ellies to deal 4 face. They also, if they live, it's like a Savannah High main. And then you have Alakir, which is just 8 mana, deal 6. This deck doesn't have the ability to run Fireball, or it would. So you have like Alakir, which again, if it gets buffed by the Whack-A-Null, that's just a lot of damage because this guy will go to 4 attack. So that's 8, and then plus 3, which is 11, which is a lot of damage for 8. Aggro Shaman is back on the map. Moving to a different form of Paladin, and that's going to be the Secret Paladin. So both renditions are basically, I don't want to say you play them the same because this is definitely more of an aggro deck than the Libram deck is, but both of them are pretty, if the card is green and it's in your hand and you play the card, that's probably the right move. And if you have to select between the highest costing mana card and that like a not high costing mana card, just picking the highest costing mana card for that turn is probably going to, again, be the best play. And decks like this, I really just don't like because you have basically 1, maybe 2 options per turn, which limits the amount of mistakes you can make, which then increases the chance that you're correct in the play you make, and then the power level of the deck. I don't like high power level decks that are easy to play because then it just doesn't feel good, right? You just, you're not learning from the games that you play. You're just playing the cards and winning, and it's like winning is fun, but at what cost? So it's not, again, Paladin, it's not that I hate Paladin, it's just that I don't like the direction that they've taken Paladin. Like old school, like Murloc OTK Paladin, where the deck had like some cool win con and you had to play a certain way to get it done, and you had to play certain Murlocs in certain orders, made it fun. You had the OTK Servala Paladin, which was like a really, really high skill cap deck. You just don't see that stuff really anymore. You see it a little bit with like Garrett Rogue and like OTK Quest DH, but like the Paladin of today and the Paladin of before are way too, they are very different classes, and the Paladin of today is very, very strong and very easy to play. So if you're newer or to like an intermediate player and you're looking for like a nice mid-range to aggro deck, it's not the hardest deck to play, but you're probably going to win a lot. That's going to be this Paladin deck right here. And there's a lot of similarities between the Libram deck and this Paladin deck in regards to just the minions you play. There is a vast difference in the deck, but there's a lot of the same-ish minions and spells. So you have a lot of redundancy there if you end up crafting either one of those. But yeah, the Secret Paladin, well, Secret Buff Paladin, very, very good deck, very fast deck. We covered it in our last video as well. Again, we covered this Mage deck in the best 5 decks to play after the nerfs and buffs, and Quest Mage is still, I think it's actually the most popular class and deck on ladder right now. And it's probably going to remain that way until it gets touched. It's just hard to compete with the power level of this particular deck right now, just because all of the cards synergize so well together. You don't need to play any minions in the deck to win, and you can kill your opponent in some inevitable infinite damage combo. So obviously Quest Mage is worth it. We've talked about it a lot, so I won't go over the exactsies. We have a deck guide on it. It was also in our last video, but yeah, definitely mentioned Quest Mage as one of the most popular and best decks to play right now. And then we also have the Aggro Druid, again, because of Warlock nerfs and because Mage is so popular. Obviously, these super hyper aggressive aggro decks like Druid right now, a ton of people told me they hit Legend with Druid last season. They ranked up quite a bit with it. And the reason being is it's just fast as fuck, boy. It is super, super fast, very, very annoying. And the combos that you can use with like Oracle of Elune, the Razormane into the Graybra, it's like a turn 6, 2 Graybra, 2 Razormanes turn, and that's just almost impossible to deal with. So this deck basically took over the old style token druid with Glowfly Swarms, because Glowfly cost 5 mana, and why would you wait for 5 mana when you can play cards that summon a shit ton of cards for 3 mana? So that's why this is basically seen over the Glowflies. The Glowfly, you thought that was fast. This deck is faster. So Aggro Druid doing extremely well for a lot of people. So remember, all the deck codes will be in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like. If I happen to leave anything out that you're seeing out there that we didn't cover, feel free to put that as well. The comment sections for me to get the feedback from you guys on these videos, but also if there's any interactions, if stuff that I happen to miss, definitely let me know. Also note, Quest Rogue is definitely on the rise as well. I didn't feel like including it because there's not enough data on it yet. There's not enough people playing it. I feel like with Mage still being as popular as it is, Quest Rogue wasn't willing to talk about. But if Libram Paladin and the Deathrattle Demon Hunter continue to go up, then Quest Rogue is a great way to defeat those decks, right? So you have like your best decks, and then you have your decks that defeat those best decks. But then if the decks that defeat the best decks take over the best decks, now you need a new set of decks that beat the best decks, which originally were the decks that were built to beat what was previously the best decks. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a nice cycle of decks in and out, and that's basically what we call the meta. And so until we see a change in the meta and more people flipping over to these counter decks to the current best decks, then Quest Rogue, in my opinion, isn't really the best choice, but it is a good deck. And with that, thank you guys for watching. As always, I'm Robert Warshak, and happy whatever the hell day it is.